This is Seeking Catharsis. It's been a while since I recorded. I needed some time to kind of think through my feelings and process things in my life. But I wanted to talk about anniversaries and my second marriage anniversary. It came about a week after I had decided to end couples therapy with my spouse. He wasn't actively participating. He wasn't doing any work. He was using therapy to bring up old issues of the past, issues that existed for him before the marriage and that had not been addressed or brought up in couples therapy before marriage, but now he was using them as reasons to be resentful. It just didn't make any sense to me. So I had decided, as I said in a previous episode, to stop therapy. It was creating and causing more harm for me than it was helping and creating a bridge towards reconciliation. Also, in the last therapy session, my husband had essentially said, hey, I know she's been through a lot and she deserves better, basically, but I'm just not willing to do that. And there are times when I am with her and I feel as though I know that she probably would like for me to touch her or to hug her or to be kind to her. And I just can't bring myself to do it. So in our last session, he basically said, I'm aware of what I'm doing. I know that she deserves better. And I'm just not doing it for some reason. And so that kind of left me just like, it was like a do or die situation for me. I knew I couldn't stay in this situation. It was, there was no positive to staying with him. This wasn't going to get better. He was only going to continue to pull basic resources and basic kindness away from me if I continue to entertain the idea of being a couple. We simply were not a couple. He was doing everything in his power to create distance between us, even though I had been willing to forgive and to reconcile with him and to allow him the space to have other relationships and the forgiveness that I had been willing to give and had given him. I had forgiven him for his transgressions, but I was not willing to continuously be victimized by him, by being neglected or mistreated because he just felt like he needed to do it or felt like he didn't have it in him to treat me better. At the time that we ended therapy, I felt really good about it. I felt like I had made the right decision and that we no longer had to continue to work towards something that was literally just a facade. There was no marriage. We didn't live in the same home. We didn't speak on a regular basis. There was no respect on his part. He did not respect me. I still respected. I treated him with respect and still tried to treat him like a human being, even though his behavior was kind of demonic in my view. And in return, I didn't get that. And it just was a facade. And I was no longer interested in maintaining the facade because it was really hurting me and it seemed to be helping him. And that didn't serve a purpose for me. So the following week, he sent me a text asking if we could go to dinner on Tuesday. And that Tuesday was our anniversary. And I had really no interest in celebrating our anniversary, acknowledging it, anything like that, because for the entire duration of our marriage, there was no marriage, there was no respect, there was no care, there was nothing marital that I had gotten from that. There was nothing marital about it, that in our relationship. So I didn't want to push the issue or pretend to celebrate something that just never existed. But because I am in this situation where I am involved with someone who has a disordered personality and who needs to feel like they're not being abandoned and needs to feel like I care, I felt a lot of pressure to say yes. Part of it was I was still working with him, and I almost felt like if I didn't do something with him or accept his invitation, that there would be some type of punishment, whether financial or something related to work or being put down. So at the time, I was just really, concerned about the repercussions of continuing to push him away, because I had, made the decision to stop therapy and to basically disallow access to me on a regular basis to talk about this relationship and go over issues that, there just seemed to be no end. There seemed to be no solution. He didn't seem solution oriented. He wasn't solution oriented. I was looking for solutions. I was trying to, if he brought up an issue, I would say, okay, I understand that. How about this? How about this? I was always trying to figure out the solution, and he was always bringing up the issues. He refused to be happy. He refused to cooperate. And I was always acquiescing and compromising and giving a little and trying to look at it from a different perspective. And it was just me. It was almost like he was throwing balls out and watched me run around to catch them. And it was a game for him to see me try to problem solve issues that he never intended to solve. So when he did ask that if we could go to dinner for our anniversary, I really did not want to go, but, I had to weigh the options and just say, if I don't do this, what's going to happen next? And, how is he going to deal with this rejection? And I just didn't want to deal with that. So I said, sure. I didn't respond right away. I slept on it. And then I was just like, yeah, we can do that. That sounds fine. So he wound up making reservations, and, it wasn't anything really for me to celebrate. I didn't feel like it was a special occasion. I felt like it was a duty for me to attend dinner with him. And I made it a point not to dress up or to, doll myself up, because, this was not a date. This is not someone who's even remotely interested in me as a human being. And I really was just honestly just wondering what his motives were, what was going to happen over dinner, and, what he was going to do to kind of ruin my day or, the occasion. And that was, my fears and my apprehension were spot on. So the evening that he picked me up for dinner, I get in the car, and he's in a pretty funky mood. And I'm like, hey, how are you? Happy anniversary. How's your day going? And he's like, oh, I'm just really overwhelmed. And, I just feel like I'm doing all the work. And, I feel like you and our associate and everybody else is just not doing things right. And, I feel like I'm always having to figure things out. And so immediately I became aware of what was happening. And, there's a pattern that a lot of narcissistic people have with birthdays and special occasions where they try to ruin them. And I immediately became aware of, this tactic. And so I just got quiet and listened, and I heard him out and said, okay, what are you talking about? What's wrong? And he's like, oh, I just feel like I'm always doing all this work, and you guys, like, I just feel like I'm doing the most of this. And, it's just not reality. Like, I didn't even bother arguing with him because I work so many hours and I put so much energy and effort into our business and into what we're doing that it just, for me, wasn't worth even trying to defend myself. But what I did want to do is just make sure he felt heard, which is completely, it's just not true to myself. Like, the real me wanted to be like, are you bugging? Like, you don't do as much work as I do on a daily basis. And, half the time I don't know what you're working on. And half the time, you're delegating. But I didn't say that. I just listened and just said, well, I understand what you're saying. Is there, what can we do to support you? And, it was a typical enabling conversation that I decided to participate in because I just didn't want to fight. And so I made it into a like, oh, I understand. And, what can we do to support you? What are the things that you feel like you're, not being supported in? And, by the way, today's our anniversary. Is it possible that we can pick this up, another day and maybe not talk about it today? Because it was like, this is how you're picking me up to drive to our anniversary dinner. This is how this is the energy you're giving right now. Like, and so, I politely just said, okay, I understand how you feel. And, let's talk about it tomorrow. And, let's talk about it in the next priorities meeting. But today, can we kind of focus on our special occasion? And I knew, that he'd never intended to make this into a special occasion. He intended to ruin this day, which I guess he thought I somehow held in some regard. But after what I had experienced for the last 2 years in our relationship, I surely didn't expect roses, dinner, or, any quality time. I definitely wasn't looking forward to it, and I hadn't asked for it. So, to be someone that asked for the time with me to celebrate or to acknowledge our anniversary and to open the evening with that negativity was just kind of a foreshadowing of what was to come. So we get to the restaurant, nice restaurant, really hard to get reservations. I don't know how he did that, but it was nice. We got there, we sat down, and we're making small talk. And I just was kind of, anxiously awaiting the line of questioning, or like when the shoe was going to drop. When is he going to throw another curveball in here, to ruin this night? So we're talking, we're looking at the menu, things are looking great. I'm excited. I'm trying to keep it upbeat, which is what I have to do. I don't need, I don't want to show him anything. I don't want to show him frustration that, we started the day the evening like this with him complaining about my work on a way to our anniversary dinner or, anything like that. I really just wanted to keep things light because that's what I try to do. I'm trying to avoid conflict. I'm trying to not go down a rabbit hole with him and have a fight or an argument over nothing. So we start talking about how things are going, and then he starts asking me about this project, the one project that I recently took on with another partner that was a development project for us that we would be bringing in-house. And I was really excited about it. I had not used any of the company's resources, so I'd used my own money to secure the deal. I had really taken on the work on the weekends, evenings, just like really try to segregate my time so that I could add some value, but also like not lean on him for it. And I thought I was doing a good job because it seemed like a really cool deal. And I thought it was a good opportunity. And he had often complained, when it was convenient, that I didn't do enough to bring in business. It always seemed like I didn't do enough. Either I didn't work hard enough, or I didn't work right, or I didn't bring as much into the business. It was like no matter what I did, it was never good enough. So I thought for this project, this will be a good one. I'm not asking for any funds from him or the business to make this happen, and I'm putting in the work, and we'll be able to reap the benefits. And so he starts asking me how that's going, and I'm like, it's going okay. Here's what we're doing now, and here's the next step. And he starts asking me how we're, just how we're securing funds and how we're financing it. And he starts talking about how my partner doesn't seem that intelligent, and how he asked what her name was again. So it was all of this like diminishment. And, it was interesting because we had about 10 other projects that we're working on as a firm. And he was really fixated on the one that I was working on, that I brought in. And he's asking all these questions, and I'm like answering them, and I'm starting to feel like, okay, he's like trying to pick with me. And I'm trying to like just stay calm and seem secure. And then he's like, I don't think I want our firm associated with this project. And I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, well, I feel like there's too much risk. I don't think it's a good project. I don't think, it just seems too risky. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe, he's like, so he starts like putting in all these like negative kind of like, it just feels like he's trying to create this issue with this project. And I'm like, well, is there a reason why you're so concerned about this project out of like the 10 others that we're working on? And he's like, well, you're spending all of your time on it. And that just wasn't true. Like, it just like, I had one meeting a week after the work hours. So it was at 5 to 6 or 6 to 7, something like that. But it was 1 hour a week. It was a check-in call with the team. And he's like, you're spending so much time on it. And there's no way, first of all, we don't live together. We don't talk on a regular basis. There's no way, where are you getting this from, that I'm spending all this time on this project? So I'm like, I am? And he's like, yeah, you're meeting, every week on this. And I'm like, okay, so once a week is a lot of time on a project? And he's like, well, I just really like, it doesn't feel like it's our project. And I'm sitting there and I'm looking at him and I'm like, oh, he's going to use today to try to pull the rug from under me and say, you can't use the firm's background and balance sheet to finance this project. He's going to tell me this today. And that's exactly what he did. So I'm sitting there and I was almost like prepared for this because of course I knew, like that's what happens on special days. You find ways to ruin it. You find ways to take the attention away from the actual thing that you're celebrating, and you find another way to impact the day. And that's what he did. So he essentially told me that he didn't like that I was using our email, our company email, and my signature block and our logo. And I wasn't, he was asking what my role was and how I was presenting it to the public. And I was like, well, as we pitch it to the teams, this is what I'm saying. And he's like, well, there's too much risk in that. I'm like, okay, well, we can get insurance and, we can protect ourselves against any potential risk. And he's like, oh, it's not an insurance thing. It's this. So it was like all these issues. And I was like, all right, that's fine. So I will just do it under my own company's name, and I won't associate it with our company. It's fine, and I was like, okay, is that it? Is that, will that make you feel better? And then he starts going on this whole fear-mongering monologue. He starts talking about how he had the worst deal, years ago when he first got into the business, and it was the worst deal and it was a failure, and then somebody else got sued, and it was like this whole thing of like really, really trying to make me scared of what I was doing, of this, of taking on this project that I was really excited about, that so many people were excited about, and trying to get me, because I guess he thought that by pulling the resources away from me, that I would think that it wasn't a good deal, or that I would give up, or I wouldn't figure out how to do it. And when I said to him, oh, it's okay, it's fine, I wanted it to be a part of this business, but if you don't think it should, or you're not comfortable with that, that's fine. I'll just do it with my own business, and then you won't have any liability. He immediately started doing this fear monologue, really trying to make me see all the dangers and going forward with it on my own, and why it was going to fail, and how much risk that was to him as my spouse, and how we're going to be individually liable. And I'm sitting there looking at him, and I'm like, that is such BS. And then at that point I realized, okay, so now you can make a choice. You can either start debating with him about this and proving your point, or you can just acquiesce and say, those are good points. I'm glad you're telling that to me. And that's what I did. I essentially just was like, okay, I see it, and those are really good points. And you know what I'll do? I'll immediately just, I'll think about what you're saying, and I'll also just, kind of distance this project from, our company's name. And then I changed the subject. And, started talking about, lighter subjects, like just totally didn't even let him think that what just happened fazed me or upset me, because I was already hip to what he was trying to do. And that was essentially trying to knock me off and just make me disoriented and frustrated and angry, or make me even say, I can't believe you're having this conversation with me. Like, this was supposed to be an anniversary dinner. I'm still reeling from it, because it's like, you invited me out to come for our anniversary, for a marriage that you never acknowledged or respected or cared for. And you used that time to bully me and to try to diminish a project that I was so proud of, and so proud to bring to our book of business, to tell me that it wasn't good enough, and that you didn't want anything to do with it, and I wasn't really allowed to use the email, and I wasn't allowed to use my title and my association on our anniversary. And it would have stung if I hadn't expected something like this, but it was almost like, wow, there really is a pattern to this. And this is really like, if you don't know what you're dealing with, it could drive you crazy. And because I knew what I was dealing with, because I knew that this was likely going to be what was going to happen from the first time I got into the car with him, where he was already in a very sour mood and complaining about how he was overworked, and how I wasn't performing, and how our associate wasn't performing the way he wanted us to, and really trying to make, from the beginning, from the second I got into the car with my happy-go-lucky demeanor where he's trying to bring me down. He's trying to make me defensive. It didn't work because I saw where he was going with it. And I was like, you know what? Yeah, let me see how I can support you. Let us know how we can support you. Let's work on that tomorrow. But tonight, let's celebrate our anniversary, right? Because he invited me out to this. I didn't press this. I didn't ask for it. I definitely didn't expect to go out, and I really would have rather just stayed home and worked the way I usually do. So when I found myself there, at dinner with him, and kind of told him, oh, it made sense. I understand where you're coming from. No problem. I'll just, put it in my business's name. No worries. It was almost like I was some type of oracle. Like I could see the future. And I was like, wow, he really did just try to throw a wrench in my whole day. This whole day, he really tried to make me feel like he was taking something away from me. And I didn't allow him to. I enjoyed the delicious meal. I toasted to him. I smiled. I laughed. Of course, that was all very hard. It was really hard. I went, excused myself and went to the restroom and freshened up and kind of just looked at myself in the mirror. I was like, wow, like this is your life right now. Like this, you're with someone who just, I'm not with him, but I have someone in my life who's just really horrible. And this is how you're being treated on your anniversary. You've never had a good one. You've never had a good day of marriage, really. And instead of either just letting it die and just not acknowledging it, he decided to make a point to pull me out and to invite me out and to try to take more from me. And I acknowledged that, and then I went back to the table and continued dinner. And, the very next day, I got my own domain. I spoke to my partner, and I let her know that I was in an abusive relationship and that I needed to do the project with her without any association with my husband. So his behavior, what he did to me over the past couple of years and, throughout the relationship after marriage, really helped clear the path for me to find my freedom. It allowed me to really open up to people. I was really afraid of telling my partner about what was happening. One, because she had seen my husband and I as a power couple who were doing all these great projects together and were really working well together and supportive of one another. But she really didn't know that behind the scenes he was putting me down, diminishing my value, my worth, my contribution to the business, to a relationship. He was blaming me for his unhappiness, his being miserable. All the while, in our relationship, I was always the joyful one, always very accommodating, understanding, relaxed. If he needed time and space, I was always willing to do it. I got no credit for that. Instead, I was blamed for whatever turmoil he was experiencing within himself. And I didn't know what I was dealing with at the time, but it's really painful when you think that you have a good relationship with someone and you find out that they were absolutely miserable, and they say it in such a way where you're made to feel as though you're the cause of this misery. And it was heartbreaking for me. So to be able to open up to her and to just say, I really enjoy working with you. I really like this project, but it has to be done, under a different business name because I need to create my own brand and to promote my own brand and my own work because my partner doesn't support this project. he doesn't support this project. He doesn't believe in it. And he also, plus, by the way, he's abusive to me, and he's been abusive to me, and we're actually separated and we don't live together. And, he's been really horrible to me since I caught him cheating on me. And, I had to tell her all those things, and it was just awful, right? Because it put so much at stake. I mean, I'm showing her I'm vulnerable, and things aren't as nice and pretty as you thought they were. They're not perfect. I'm not happy. I'm miserable. I'm alone. I'm scared. I don't make a lot of money on my own. And we're working on this multi-million-dollar project, and I'm like, hey, I need to get out of my situation, and this, I can't have him involved in this because he doesn't want to be. And second, this is my escape right here. This project will be how I leave this man. And surprisingly, I didn't know how she was going to respond. She completely had my back and was like, you don't need that. You don't need him. You can do this. You are that company that you have with him. And, you can do this, and let's do a different, we can do a different entity. That's fine. You could do this. And by the way, I was in a similar situation, and I understand what you're going through. And it was unreal, to be able to share what I was going through, and to be understood and believed in and believed. So that was what happened on my anniversary. It was, a little better than the first one, but still pretty awful. And let's just hope I don't get to another one with him. Let's hope I can be divorced and moved on, so that I don't have to actually even acknowledge the day, or, when that day comes again. Anyway, I just wanted to share that. It was not a happy anniversary. It was he really tried to take more from me. He tried to hurt me. And I'm kind of glad he did, because this project that he rejected and that he tried to trample on and dismiss is going to be amazing. And he won't have anything to do with it, as if that were divine design. So I'm very grateful that he did that the way he did, because it just showed me how ruthless he was, how mean he was, and how entitled he was to think that he could take me out like that, and bait me to think that we were going to do something nice, and use that evening as an opportunity to try to take something really meaningful away from me. It's cruel, and it reinforced the fact that this person was not a nice person to me. He wasn't good for me. He's not a safe person. He's someone who is very dangerous to me and my mental health and well-being. And I'm glad he showed me that when he did and how he did, because it gave me the strength and the fortitude to find another pathway to make it happen without him, without any guilt. Guilt-free, you didn't want anything to do with it. You don't believe in it. You don't believe in me. You think my partner's not intelligent. All these things, all these insults. And it resonated. And that's all I needed to hear, to say, you know what? I think he might be threatened by this project. I think he might know that it's going to be successful. And so he wants He wants to make me doubt myself and our ability to make it happen. And so he's treating this issue of insecurity and instability, and really wanted me to really figure it out. And I guess he thought if I couldn't use our company name and our company resources that I wouldn't know how to make it happen. But I guess he forgot who he was married to, because the next day just bought a new domain and told everyone this is the new email and this is, we just made it happen. And the rest is history. So yeah, that was my unhappy anniversary. But I'm glad it happened, and I wasn't expecting much. He really tried to make that day something horrible for me. And I'm very grateful that he did, because I'll never, ever look back and think of him kindly. He's not a good person for me. Maybe he's good for someone else, but he's definitely not a good person for me. And he's not anyone I want or deserve in my life. So I'm just hoping that I won't have to have another anniversary with him. Anyway, that's that. I just wanted to check back in and give you that update. Thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you real soon. Take care.